Welcome to Still Moments Nursery tutorials. In this tutorial we will be covering the most used vinyl neutralizing techniques to achieve a nice base skin tone on your reborn doll kits. Supplies you will need for this neutralizing wash are odorless thinners, Genesis Heat Set Paint Yellow White 08, half and 3/4 maxi mop brushes, sponges, paper towel and a mixing tray. Start by adding odorless thinners to your mixing tray. I use a small squirty bottle and this helps to avoid spills. Then using your 1/2 inch maxi mop brush, apply a small amount of Yellow White 08 or yellow and white paint mixed together onto the tip of your brush and mix into your thinners. The colour you're wanting to achieve is a very thin translucent colour. This will avoid the colour overstaining your vinyl and be hard to correct. And as this method can be repeated, it is best to have your mix thin. Once you're happy with the consistency of your mix, test your colour thickness by wiping a line onto some paper towel to make sure you have the right consistency. If your mix is too thick, add some more thinners before you test it on your vinyl. Using your 1/2 inch maxi mop brush, apply a generous amount of your yellow mix onto your makeup sponge and set aside. Refill your brush and apply a generous amount of your wash onto your limb. The more paint mix you have on the vinyl, the easier it is to get an even covering. If you start getting paint lines on your vinyl, this may mean your mix might be too thick. Simply add a few drops of thinners to thin down your mix. Using the sponge you applied paint to earlier, randomly pounce it all over the vinyl in a random pattern. This will help to spread the paint evenly and leave no clumps of paint gathered. After you have finished pouncing the paint evenly, you will need to gather the paint from the creases using your dry 3/4 maxi mop brush. Simply pounce randomly over the creases and anywhere else paint has gathered. Pouncing with your dry 3/4 maxi mop brush will help to spread the paint evenly as the thinners dry. Try to make sure you don't leave any paint build up in the creases, otherwise this will be hard to remove once you have baked the layer. Now we apply the same technique to the arms. Remix your paint and apply a generous amount of your yellow wash onto the arm. Remember, if you start to see paint lines, add more thinners to your mix. The more thin down your paint mix is, the less chance you have of overstaining the vinyl. Now using the sponge with paint already applied, randomly pounce gently all over the limb to help spread the paint evenly. If you feel you have too much paint on your sponge, simply dab it off onto some paper towel. Make sure you keep your 3/4 maxi mop brush as dry as possible. I do this by wiping it gently onto some paper towel. And just like you did the legs, you want to remove any buildup of paint from the creases, so gently pounce over any areas of paint that have paint buildup. Now we apply the same technique to the head. Remix your paint and reapply it onto your sponge. Then refill your 1/2 inch maxi mop brush and apply a generous amount of the wash onto your head. You may find you need to refill your brush a couple of times to cover the entire head. And remember, if you see paint lines, add more thinners to your mix. The more thinned down your paint mix is, the less chance you have of staining the vinyl, so try to keep your mix nice and thin. Try not to overbrush, as the paint from the brush can leave lines and stain your vinyl. Now, using the sponge with paint already applied, randomly pounce gently all over the head to help spread the paint evenly. Remember to keep your yellow wash thin so your mix doesn't stain your vinyl. It's always best to add more thin layers than one thick layer. Just like you did the limbs, you want to remove any buildup of paint from the creases around the eyes, nose and mouth. Gently pounce over any areas that have paint buildup, either with your sponge or using your dry 3/4 maxi mop brush. I pay a lot of attention to the creases around the face, as you don't want any build-up in the corners of the eyes or mouth. Behind the ears is also a place that you will need to pay attention to. Using your dry 3/4 maxi mop brush, gather any excess paint from the creases. You have now completed the neutralizing yellow wash technique on your peach grey vinyl reborn doll kit. You will need to heat set the paint permanently by baking the doll kit in a convectional home oven at 130 degrees Celsius for around 9 minutes. Remember to wait until thinners have completely dried before baking. Place all your doll parts onto a cookie tray that is lined with a white, no pattern hand towel. If you feel you need another layer of yellow wash to get a more neutralized colour, simply repeat this technique again until you're happy with the base colour you achieve.